All right, guys. I know it's been a while since I've done a video, but obviously, if you follow me, you see that I started prep Monday, and this will be my first prep since I turned pro in 2017. I wanted plenty of time off, of course, because number one, when I turned pro, there was initially only I think it was like a 7 pound increase in like the cutoff weight for classic. And then 2 months later, they changed that again. And then it shot up to almost 15 pounds from when I turned pro to what it is now. And I think hopefully this is the stop of it. So I was like, okay, I have literally at least, or try to get to 15 pounds of accrued tissue. And there's no way at my advanced level and doing this for freaking 3 decades that I'm going to put on 15 pounds in a year or less. Or actually, it would have been less than a year to compete the following year in 2018. So I was like, that's not going to happen. And I decided to take the time away, focus more, and to also focus on business, and just because I'd been competing year after year to obviously try to turn pro. So I decided to take a step back, focus on improvements, focus on improving our business and diversifying things or whatever. But now it's going to be on 3 years since I have competed. That is the longest break I've had, and honestly, since I've been competing since I was 17 years old, and I'm 43 now. I've never taken a 3-year hiatus from competing, so that is a new thing. But at my level, it's needed. So prep just started. We've had a good off season. Things have done well, and I have a phenomenal team behind me. I couldn't ask for better people. Obviously, from my wife to Gustavo, who's obviously filming this right now, documenting everything, and obviously helps me with everything else in my business. Coach Adam Miller, Coach Kassam, all those guys from the N1 team who've brought me in as one of their own. We've had so many great conversations, and they're on the same, I guess you could say, philosophy as I am, and it's just bouncing things off of each other, and they keep me in the right mindset, obviously, which is going to be needed when I get closer to the competition, so I don't veer off the wrong path. That's one of the things. If you watched my video when I turned pro, I basically self-sabotaged myself for the first competition that year and just destroyed doing too much, just trying to go all out. And then I flipped things around, did what I should have done to begin with, and then won my card. But I obviously do not want that happening with this first, my pro debut. And I plan on doing 2, maybe 3 shows. I'm not really giving out like which ones they are yet, because it's nice with the IPV. There's tons of shows to choose from. I have my eye on a few, and then I'll make the decision depending on how my progress goes on which ones I'm going to jump in first. Because until I get to a place where I'm going to be ready in 4 weeks or whatever it is. Okay, now I'll do this competition. So it's nice that I don't have an exact timeline. I have a gauge, within, let's say, the next 13 to 16 weeks or so that I'm going to do my first show. But it's not 100% picked yet. So don't ask me, please. So it's been a good off season, a long off season. I'm ready to do this. And it's been up and down. It's not been perfect by any means. I've had gut issues. I dealt with gut issues and they're just now, honestly, getting to a better place than they were. I was down and out for like 6-7 months. So obviously that killed progress in the gym. Having to deal with that, I brought in Dr. James Laval, who's an expert in the field, to help me deal with it, because I did everything that I knew to do, and we had to have so many other tests, in-depth testing done to really discover all these pathogens, these bacteria overgrowths, suppression of my there's all kinds of factors that unless we had done these specific tests, I would not have known. So it's been, since working with him, it's gradually improved. And so it's got to the point where now I can actually do a prep and not hinder my results. And then I dealt with a patellar issue where I couldn't train my freaking quads for, God, it was like 3-4 months. So again, that kind of impacts progress. So understand, guys, it's been a long off season, but it's not been perfect by any means. But I've kept things under control I could keep in control, and understand that you're not going to be able to control all factors when it comes to life and training and nutrition. And I do everything as OCD and perfect as I can with quality foods, health markers, all that stuff, and I still develop these overgrowths and gut issues. Things just shit just happens sometimes, and you can't do anything about it. All you can do is dive in, try to find out the issues, and then from there look to improve the situation as much as we can, because you don't want to sit and dwell on anything, because doing that's just going to put you in this like anxiety and stressed out place, and that's not going to do you or your body any good to improve what you're trying to improve and get better, right? So don't fall into that mindset of things have to be or are going to be perfect. That the perfection just doesn't exist. So we always just want to try to keep moving forward with our progress and everything that we're doing. Okay, so the ups and downs, they came, but in a great place now. I dieted kind of earlier this year to kind of reset my body because it had been so long. Then we did a rebound out of that. So I dieted till the Olympia, which was in September, and got down to 202 pounds. And then I did a hard rebound, which turned out phenomenally. I gained a total of 18 pounds. So I got up to 220. And that was from the end of September to the end of December. So 3 months, I put on 20 pounds, and it was pretty solid tissue. And I'm in a much better starting place, really lean at this point. So I think everything's just going to kind of be pretty efficient in this process with prep. Now, 1 week into prep, I fucking get sick. I started feeling it on Thursday. Yesterday, it really hit me like a ton of bricks. Headaches and body aches, and stomach just felt queasy, and I couldn't breathe. I mean, it's just like really 1 weekend, and this shit happens. Like, again, you can't control things sometimes. It just happens. And this is after I literally took 5 days off of training and everything before starting prep, just to let my body, nervous system kind of resensitize and rest. And then 1 week back, I freaking get sick. Okay? It is what it is. So today with the training, I'm not going to go balls out because I need to make sure that I am fully recovered. I can't just let this, whatever it is, keep prolonging. I feel better today, but I'm probably going to keep training around 80% as far as intensity goes and effort. Just, I need to stimulate, I need to get in there and move things, but I'm not going to go balls out. So take that into account when you guys watch the video. So doing that. As far as where my nutrition is at this point, starting off, my macros on my training days is 300 grams of protein, actually on my training and off days. Carbs on my training days is at 350. I ended off season at 450, so I initially dropped 100 grams of carbs. And my fats are at 50 grams on both days. So the only thing that I'm manipulating right now is I'm doing 350 grams of carbs on training and then 100 grams of carbs on my off days. Now, people are like, well, why are you dropping carbs so low on your off days? Well, look at my situation. Like, my gut's still not 100%. It's better, but it's also to give my gut a little break on the off days. Drop any inflammatory, as much as an inflammatory response as possible. So there's context behind that. It's not that it's a bad thing. So don't freak out because I'm doing that. It doesn't mean that you need to do it either. So obviously don't follow what I'm doing just because I'm doing it. So that's where nutrition is. Today with training, we're going to do back and biceps. And my split right now is 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, and 1 day off, and just rotates. I'm also, in this first 3 week phase, I'm focusing or specializing, you should say, on delts and biceps, because those are weak points of me. So while calories are still kind of up, I'm going to the frequency is high. So I'm training delts and biceps like every 3 days, and everything else is being trained every 5 to 6 days. So because you increase the frequency of some of the muscles, you have to drop the frequency and volume of everything else to be able to recover optimally. So those are what I'm bringing up for the next 3 weeks. And then probably from there, going to a little bit of a hybrid type approach with hypertrophy and volume and stuff. So that's what we're doing today, back in biceps. Anything else? I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to finish. This is my pre-workout, which I had that pre-workout that you've seen that I posted with supplements. This is my alpha pump, this is pre, and then this is obviously my intra, this is my post lift and my glutamine, cyclic dextrins, and yes, I do the glutamine in intra because it helps to get rid of ammonia during the session. So we're going to get ready to jump into the training session, and then I will see you guys in. All right, so first video being shot in the Crest House of Pain, hence you see on the wall back there. So obviously my little gym that me and my wife put together, something I've been wanting for a long, long time, for convenience. Number one, just because obviously most of our work is done at home, and being able to do the work, eat, just walk out into my garage, train, go back in without having to, it's not a big commute to the gym, but obviously it's still more convenient to train here most of the time. So I bought everything that I pretty much need to do almost any workout. Honestly, the only piece of equipment I don't have in here that I would utilize would be a leg press. Other than that, we have everything else we need. And everything we bought, basically 90% of this is Prime Fitness stuff, which is, to me, is the best on the market because I can make one machine do 10 different things, right? So love it. Wouldn't have it any other way. Great setup. Got swing, squat, leg extension, rows, and whatever. So today we're going to do back and biceps. So starting with the Prime chest supported row. Now, if you're not familiar with Prime, the one reason that I absolutely love it is because I can change the resistance profile on it. Okay, resistance profile being where the load is the heaviest, right? So like in a row, in most typical machines, when you're rowing like a hammer strength machine, it's heavy here, but then as you row, it gets heavier, heavier, and heavier, and heavier, right? So it's just like, it's not matching the profile of the muscle, right? So like with your lats, you're strongest here in the lengthened position, in the stretch position, and then as you row, you get weaker, okay? So if you can't match that very well, it's just kind of an uneven amount of tension throughout the entire range. With this, I can put the load where I want. So it's like I can load it here, load it mid-range, load it in the short position, or I can make it to where it's, you know, heaviest here, moderate here, lightest here. But there's all kinds of things in between. But the take-home point is I can manipulate so many factors that this one piece of equipment I can do literally like 7 different exercises on for the most part and get things out. So what we're starting with first is this is going to be lat focused rows, and it's going to be a superset in the sense that we're doing the same movement, but I'm going to be manipulating where the load is heaviest. So we're going to initially start with loading the contracted position. So I'm going to place most of my weight here on the bottom peg. So it's going to be heaviest in this contracted position. I'll do that for 8 reps or so, and then I'm going to rest around 45 seconds, and then I'm going to take the plates from the short position and load it on this top peg, which is going to overload that stretch lengthened position. All right. So what this does is it completely fatigues pretty much the entire contractile range of the tissue really efficiently. Okay. So I'm getting as much output as I can on the short position, which is the weaker position, and you fatigue the fastest there. So I'll get that over with in the short position, and then go into the lengthened position where I am strongest and finish taxing those fibers out. And also look at that I've already pre-fatigued the short position. I don't have as many fibers to reach out to for help. So then I continue to fatigue what's left, and these have to work even harder, right? And there's tons of ways to manipulate this, right? So to do a lat focused row, right? I've done a video on this lat versus upper back. So lat focused row is just about lining things up, right? So with this, and I love the chest support because I have a ton of stability here, and I don't have to worry about stabilizing my torso like in a cable row. So with this, it's just my angle of my torso, so I'll be seated, chest leaning forward, and that's going to line up my lats really well. And then from here is just making sure not to arch. I want to keep my spine neutral, so basically the whole time I'm thinking about pushing my chest into the pad and then driving my shoulders down and elbows kind of in towards the hips. And because remember, where things attach is the humerus, basically towards the mid spine. So it's kind of like we want to get those points closer together. And I have my little buddy here. He likes to come in here and work out sometimes, don't you, buddy? Say hi, Luca. I'm gonna get buff. Yeah. That's what I'm doing first. So overload the short position and then overload length position. Now, people ask, well, what do I do if I'm in a gym and I don't have this pieces of equipment? That's where I would utilize something like tempo to change things up. So you could shift the tempo focus, right? You could do a pause in the short position for 2 seconds for your first 6 to 8 reps. And then you could do a pause in the lengthened position for 1 to 2 seconds. So you're kind of, not the exact same effect, but you're gonna get a similar effect by manipulating tempo. So that's where variables like tempo and setup and all that stuff just come into play, right? There's so many variables that you can use to improve programming and get more specific with the stimulus you're trying to get. And then there's ways like you're doing a hammer strength lat row, right? And you could do a step back version and then go into a kneeling version, which changes the resistance profile and so on and so forth. Just so many options. All right, so I'm gonna get on this, warm up, and then we'll get things going. You can see on the last set here, I couldn't get full range of motion. That's where manipulating the resistance profile comes into play. Because obviously on the first one, when I was doing the short position overload, I was able to get pretty much all the way back and I fatigued the fibers here. So it's okay that I was only getting to like, 50%, 70% range of motion out the end of this one because these fully shortened fibers are already taxed. There's nothing left. So I'm just continuing to keep tension and work where I have fibers left to keep doing work. So that's where you got to look at range of motion and stuff like that, where you can take that into account and programming things in like 50% range of motion failure. But when doing that, you've got to make sure that you're keeping the tension on the targeted muscle, because what happens is, especially with the rows, that people will do this and literally it's their brachialis and everything doing the work, and it's not mainly the lats pulling. So if you can't keep the tension on the muscle, then it's pointless to do that shit. All right, so second exercise we're going to do is a rear delt cable row. Now, you're not 100% isolating the rear delt by any means, but it is one of the best ways to train the rear delt, especially with a lot of load and obviously a lot of output. And just understanding obviously the line of pull for the rear delt. A lot of people do rear flies for the rear delt, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You're limited in the load you can use there, and you're not recruiting all the fibers when you're doing that movement. So that's where the rear delt row comes in. It's a great option, obviously. So to line up the rear delt, the way it attaches to the scapula is more of a 45 to 60 degree angle. Obviously, depends on the amount of tissue someone has. The bigger someone is, the more narrow they are, their structure is, it will dictate, where their elbow positioning is or upper arm positioning to hit that. And so when you want to bias the rear delt, what you're going to focus on more is shoulder extension and not as much scapular retraction. Okay, because when you're focusing mainly on scapular retraction at the end range, that's going to be more of your teres, rhomboids, mid-trap, which they obviously get stimulated to an extent, but again, it's about biasing where a greater percentage of the tension and load is going. So you get that arm path, and then you think about driving to much shoulder extension as possible. But basically, it's wherever you can get the elbows back the furthest without your shoulder dumping forward. So you'll get to a point to where you keep going back, and you can see how my arm starts rotating and the humerus starts dumping forward. You're losing tension at that point, and you're just kind of jamming and beating up the joint, okay? So it's just as much shoulder extension as you can get and just stay in that range of motion. Like I'm gonna use a prime long bar here, which allows me to adjust the width that I'm using, and then obviously freely moving handles to adjust the angle here easily. I'm also doing this chest supported because I like chest support, because it allows me to have more output on the movement and not have to worry about stabilizing my torso. So yeah, you can do it without it, it's not a big deal, but I found that I can put more load and get more out of it when I do chest support. Now what I like to kind of rig up is, and you can use yoga pads, yoga blocks or whatever. I have this shoulder pad from Elite. You put it on the seat, and obviously it's just to raise my torso up. So my head is over the edge of the bench, because if it wasn't, I would be face planted into this bench, and this is not comfortable by any means. So it's just kind of fitting things to make the setup really easy and comfortable to perform. So there's all kinds of little cool things you can do with equipment to get more out of it or make it more comfortable. So we're gonna pyramid load up, and we're gonna do 4 sets, 8 to 10 here. This is gonna be a standalone movement. Okay, so the only downfall about doing a chest supported lat pull down, more so rows than pull downs, is getting back, walking these damn things back and getting behind the chest support, right? So I got like 255 pounds on here, and I only weigh like 220 right now. So it's like, fuck. This takes skill, guys. And then easily, now I'm ready to go. That is definitely not the last set. That was too fucking easy. Yeah, so obviously on the last set that I said, yeah, that wasn't heavy enough. So my approach on that is, right, I'm trying to go to 1 all-out set to failure. Shooting for around 10 reps, I got to 10, and I literally felt like I could do 3, maybe 4 more. So I stopped, and I was like, look, I'm not wasting this. So guess what? Doing another set. Because that's my mindset when I come to train is, you know, all-out failure, like complete mechanical failure, nothing left in the tissue to do any more work. So to me, I'm adding a little bit more volume. Next week, I'll adjust accordingly as far as I'll write this in my logbook and loading. But I honestly didn't expect to, I'm 20 pounds, a 20-pound jump from last week in this movement. So that's a pretty significant increase. So calculate it, next week come in, and you know, I'll shoot to break it by 5 pounds, 10 pounds, but who knows? Maybe I'll keep it the same, maybe I'll be able to jump another 20 pounds, but just auto-regulate. If you can do more, do more. Okay, so last 2 movements for the day. These are going to be for basically brachialis and biceps. So for the brachialis, and some back obviously we utilize here, I'm going to do neutral grip pull-ups. So how are you going to bias the brachialis over utilizing obviously most of the upper back muscles? And that's going to be just your intent. So focusing more on just flexion of the elbows, right? When I'm pulling, I'm literally just thinking about almost like a curl in a sense, and I'm flexing as much as the elbow as possible. Instead of if I was doing a pull-up to bias my upper back, I would be focused on scapular rotation, okay? So I'd come down and I'd think about rotating my scapula and then retracting it full in, right? So there the scapula's gonna move and all that's gonna move, but my main focus intent-wise is just flexion in the arm to hit more of the brachialis. From here, I'm gonna go into cable curls. Now what I'm gonna do here is you can see I'm using the Prime Fitness calves handles, and you can see how there's just a strap going through this handle. And what I'm gonna do is overload supination. So what I mean by overload supination is one of the main functions of the biceps is supinating, okay? So I'm gonna start here, and then what I'm gonna do is as I curl after about 10 to 15 degrees, and then I'm gonna supinate into the curl. Now why is this overloaded there? It's because the load is pulling away, basically on the opposing force of supinating, right? So this is my supination. So the force is pulling against that because the strap is coming out of this end of the handle. So I'm coming up, so it's loaded here. As opposed to, obviously, if this strap was connected, it would be obviously completely even. Or if I was to grab an opposite direction and then curl this way with the band coming out in the opposing direction, that would actually assist in supination, okay? So overloading supination is a great tool because that is, again, one of the main functions of the bicep. So it's gonna help develop the brachialis into the bicep as well. So what I'm gonna do here as well is I'm gonna use the Prime Fitness bench, and I'll be back here. I'm using the T bench, so these attach to the bench. And what I'm gonna use these for is stability. So it's almost like think of a preacher curl bench basically. So upper arm is gonna be set on here. That way I don't have to worry about stabilizing through the upper arm. And then as I curl, I'm in a very stable position, which means I can create a lot more output when I'm doing the movement, okay? So we're gonna do 8 to 10 reps on both of these. All right, so I'm getting ready to do my pull-ups. So this is a movement I used to do a long time ago, right? And I haven't used it that much. So it's not something I'm strong on. So the goal is around 6 reps. If I honestly stop dropping below 6 reps, I would utilize my band. This is gonna be for my wife, so she can do these. Obviously, this just assists in the movement. So if you can't do these, you can do them on a obviously assisted machine to help deload it, so it's not a big deal or not. But we'll see how good I am. One thing, guys, too, when it comes to overloading supination, whether you're using this or a dumbbell, you can obviously do it with a dumbbell by offsetting your grip, is don't supinate from the bottom. Like, don't just supinate and then curl, which I see a lot of people do, because then you've completely taken away the overload position of that movement. So you gotta let some elbow flexion occur and then supinate into that. Because if you supinate here, there's no resistance. If it's easy for me, I can sit here and do this all day. Now as I flex and then do it, then you're adding load.